My name is Caleb Beer, and this is my partner Jackson Sloan, and we'll be covering Mayfield Tornado and Hurricane Florence. In this documentary, we'll be talking about more in depth on the Mayfield Tornado again and the Hurricane Florence and how it impacted people and the damage and casualties. Starting off with the Mayfield Tornado, we can see a scale from EF0 to EF5 all the way. We can see EF0 is consisted of 65 miles an hour to 86 miles an hour. This is a minor tornado. We can see things such as power outages, damages to gutters and siding, shingles peeled off, and large branches also broken off as well. As we get into our EF1 and getting up further into the Fujita scale, we can see winds of 86 miles an hour to 110 miles an hour. We can also see small trees being uprooted, poles can be toppled during this, broken windows, of course, and significant roof damage along with EF1 tornadoes. As we jump into our EF2, which is 111 miles an hour to 135 miles an hour. This is a considerable tornado. Most poles are being knocked over, as you can see. Cars can be flipped over, as we can see in our model here. Larger trees can be uprooted, and roofs can be ripped away from homes. As we get into an EF3, again, getting worse and worse into our enhanced Fujita scale, we can see winds from 136 to 165 miles an hour. This is definitely a severe tornado. We can also see most standing objects are going to be toppled. Vehicles can be displaced and thrown meters away. We can also see bark being stripped from trees, which can also be known as debarking. We can also see entire floors being destroyed from homes as well. Now, as we get into an EF4, this Mayfield tornado was categorized as an EF4 as well. We can see it was 166 miles an hour to 200 miles an hour, and this is an extreme tornado. We can see landscape being stripped from the ground. We can also see homes being almost completely leveled, and we can also see cars being thrown into the air from this tornado. As we jump into the worst, EF5, we can see grass being ripped from the ground. We can also see homes completely swept away with almost no traces. We can also see some concrete foundations being completely ripped from the ground. These are the most severe tornadoes and something that's just extremely, extremely dangerous. Thankfully, this tornado was not an EF5 as well. A little graphic that I made was from Mayfield. We can also see again that it is an EF4 like I'd mentioned before, and we can also see it sustained winds of 188 to 190 miles an hour. As we get into a little more in depth with our Mayfield tornado, we can see a couple facts. We can also see it had a 165-mile path. We can see that it impacted Mayfield, Kentucky, hence the name Mayfield Tornado. We can see 74 casualties, and 24 of those casualties being in Mayfield, unfortunately. We can see it destroyed 4,000 structures and $305 million in damages. As we get into the outlook, and of course this date of the tornado was December 11th, 2021, and this is the outlook from NOAA Weather Service. We can also see very, very little marginal, lots of slight, a little bit of enhanced, and very, very minimal of moderate. As we jump in a little bit further description of this, we can see that the level 1, which is our marginal, of course, in the outer ring of this right here, a little bit weaker. So marginal is isolated tornadoes. We can see it is very short-lived. It can also be limited intensity. Winds can also be up to 40 to 60 miles an hour during this tornado. We can also see hail up to an inch. As we get into our slight, this is a huge area on our outlook as well. We can see slight is scattered, very short-lived once again. We can see isolated intensity and 1 to 2 tornadoes possible during this time with strong winds and wind damage. As we get into enhanced, which is a level 3, we don't see as much enhanced, which is a pretty good sign, but as we see, it's numerous tornadoes, very persistent. We can also see it's few intense tornadoes, and we can also see a few tornadoes with several reports of wind damage. As we get to our moderate, which is the worst for our outlook, we can see it's very widespread, pretty long-lived, very intense, and we can also see strong tornadoes coming from this, wind spread, wind damage, and large hail. As we see a level 5, we have no level 5 here, fortunately, because this is the worst. We can see it's widespread, extremely long-lived. We can see it's very, very intense tornadoes. This is what we would consider a tornado outbreak, which is many, many tornadoes going on. We can also see significant widespread damage.
Hurricane Florence was a tropical system that came out of the Atlantic Basin. Hurricane Florence was a Category 4 storm over Bermuda and had a low pressure of 937 millibars. It impacted portions of eastern and South Carolina and had sustained winds of 150 miles an hour. It did make landfall in the Myrtle Beach metro at a Category 1 with major flooding damage. Now you might be asking, what is storm surge? Storm surge is a wave of water that is pushed ashore due to pressure and tropical winds of a system. Peak storm surge values ranged from 8 to 11 feet in the Myrtle Beach area. Now, what can storm surge do to property? Storm surge can completely wash houses away and change the surrounding landscape drastically. Now here, we have a potential storm surge map. Here in southern North Carolina is where the storm surge was supposed to peak, but later we found out the storm surge values peaked more around the Myrtle Beach area as Florence had a left turn on its approach to the East Carolinas. Now, right here, we have the Waffle House Index. Green signals that the hurricane may or may not do much damage. These are usually around Category 1 or 2 storms. Yellow ranges around a Category 3 storm. And then red, any storm that is Category 4 to 5, most Waffle Houses will end up closing due to that. Now here, we have casualties in Florence. Direct casualties were around Florence. Direct casualties with Florence were 30, and indirect casualties were 23. These people would later succumb to their injuries from Florence. Florence did around $24 billion in damage. This was a very economical area with lots of houses and stores. 11 dams failed with Florence, which is why the flooding in the Myrtle Beach metro was completely, utterly devastating. The leading cause of death was flash flooding. Thank you.